Please. You probably clean these seats.
Hey, I've served billionaires. They don't look like you.
Please. You probably clean these seats.
You done?
Get off this plane. Get off this plane before I call the cops.
He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. In 8 minutes, she'd understand everything.
Man, she really had no idea who she was talking to. Let's see how this plays out.
The slap landed before anyone could process what was happening. A sharp crack, flesh against flesh, loud enough to cut through the soft hum of a private jet idling on the tarmac. Every head turned. Crystal glasses trembled on their trays. A loose seatbelt buckle tapped against leather. Somewhere in the back, a suitcase wheel rolled half an inch and stopped. Ashley Carter stood in the aisle, her chest rising fast, her hand still hanging in the air where it had struck him. Her face was tight, flushed, eyes blazing with a mix of anger and something uglier. Something that had been building long before this moment. "You heard me," she said, her voice sharp, brittle. "You don't belong here." The man she had just hit did not move. Not a flinch. Not a word. Not even a shift in posture. Ethan Cole sat exactly as he had been, one hand loosely holding a porcelain espresso cup, the other resting on his knee. The dark liquid inside the cup didn't ripple. Not even a tremor. That, more than anything, unsettled the room. Because people expect anger. They expect outrage. They expect a reaction that makes sense. But silence like this? Silence like this felt dangerous. Ashley let out a short laugh. Too loud, too forced, the kind of laugh meant to pull the room back onto her side. "I mean, come on," she added, glancing over her shoulder at the other attendant near the galley. "I've served billionaires. Real ones. They don't walk in dressed like that." Her eyes dropped deliberately, scanning Ethan from head to toe. Hoodie, dark jeans, plain white sneakers. No watch, no ring, no visible signal of wealth. Her lip curled just slightly. "They don't look like you." A few feet away, Ryan Brooks had already risen halfway from his seat. His jaw tightened, his hand gripping the armrest so hard the leather creaked. "That's enough," he said, low. Controlled, but there was steel underneath it. Ashley didn't even look at him. Her focus stayed locked on Ethan, like she was daring him to confirm what she had already decided about him. Ethan finally lifted his eyes. Slowly, deliberately. The movement was so small, but it shifted something in the air. Like a camera zooming in, like a spotlight narrowing. His gaze met hers. Calm and steady, not cold, not angry, just finished. "You done?" he asked. The words were quiet, almost gentle, but they landed heavier than anything shouted in that cabin. Ashley blinked just once. It was subtle, barely there, but it was enough to show the crack. Then she straightened, chin lifting again, rebuilding the version of control she needed to believe in. "Get off this plane," she snapped. "Right now, or I call airport police and have you dragged out." Dragged out. The phrase hung there. No one spoke, no one moved. The jet's engines hummed softly outside, a low, constant vibration under everything. It felt like the entire aircraft was holding its breath. Ethan didn't respond. He raised the espresso cup to his lips and took a slow sip. The sound of porcelain touching his teeth was almost inaudible, but in that silence, it felt amplified, intentional, measured. Ashley's fingers twitched at her sides. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. People like him, she thought. People who didn't belong in spaces like this. They either apologized or got defensive. They stumbled. They explained. They revealed themselves. He was doing none of that. Behind her, the other attendant shifted uncomfortably, glancing between them. "Ashley," she whispered, unsure, hesitant. "Maybe we should just—" "No," Ashley cut her off sharply, not taking her eyes off Ethan. "We are not doing this today. Not today." Like this was something she had dealt with before. Like this was a pattern. Ryan took a step forward now, fully standing. "You've already checked his ID," he said, voice tight. Dispatch confirmed everything. "You know exactly who he is." Ashley let out another laugh, softer this time, more controlled, but just as sharp. "Do I?" she said. "Because what I see is someone who walked onto a $68 million aircraft like he wandered in from the wrong side of the airport." She leaned in slightly, just enough to invade Ethan's space without touching him. "I'm responsible for this cabin," she continued, "and I'm not taking chances." Chances. Ethan set the espresso cup down carefully on the side table. The soft click of porcelain against polished wood echoed louder than it should have. Then he looked up at her again. Not reacting, not escalating, just watching. There was something in his eyes now. Not anger, not even frustration. Recognition. Like he had seen this exact moment play out before, in different rooms, different cities, different people wearing different uniforms, same script. Ashley mistook that silence for weakness. They always do. She straightened again, turning slightly toward the aisle, raising her voice, just enough for it to carry. "Sir, this is your final warning," she announced. "You are not authorized to be on this aircraft. If you do not leave immediately, I will involve law enforcement. Unauthorized." The word cut deeper than the slap, because it wasn't about the plane. It was about him. Ryan's voice came sharper now. "You're making a mistake." Ashley snapped her head toward him. "No," she said. "I'm preventing one." A pause. Then she turned back to Ethan, her expression hardening into something final. Last chance. The cabin felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in an inch on every side. Ethan leaned back in his seat, slow, controlled, completely unbothered. And for the first time, there was the faintest hint of something else in his expression. Not anger, not even satisfaction. Certainty. He didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't defend himself. He simply reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Ashley's eyes flicked to it, suspicion sharpening again. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Ethan didn't answer. He glanced down at the screen, thumb hovering for a fraction of a second. Then he tapped once, and that was it. No speech, no warning, no raised voice, just one quiet action, the kind that doesn't look like anything in the moment, the kind that changes everything after. Ashley watched him, waiting for the reaction she expected, waiting for him to panic, to plead, to prove her right. He did none of those things. Instead, he looked back up at her, and he smiled. Not warm, not friendly. The kind of smile that makes your stomach drop before you understand why. 8 minutes. That was all it was going to take. She just didn't know it yet. 8 minutes earlier, the world still made sense. The light over Teterboro Airport had that late afternoon glow that softened everything it touched. Gold on glass, gold on polished concrete, gold on the wings of jets that cost more than most people would see in a lifetime. It was the kind of place where time didn't rush. It waited. Ethan Cole's black SUV rolled up without ceremony. No escort, no flashing lights, No driver in uniform stepping out to open his door. Just the engine cutting off, the quiet click of the door unlocking, and Ethan stepping out like he had done this 1,000 times before. Because he had. Ryan Brooks came around to the other side, adjusting his jacket, eyes scanning out of habit. Not for danger, for inefficiency, for anything that might slow them down. 4:15, Ryan said, glancing at his watch. We're right on schedule. Ethan didn't answer. He was already moving. The FBO terminal stood ahead of them, all glass and steel and understated wealth. No crowds, no lines, no TSA barking instructions, just a smooth, quiet flow of people who didn't need permission to go anywhere. Inside, the air smelled like fresh coffee and expensive leather. A woman behind the front desk looked up, and her face changed the moment she saw him. "Mr. Cole," she said, stepping forward with a warm smile that reached her eyes. "Good to see you again." Ethan slowed just enough to meet her halfway. "Good to see you too, Linda," he said, voice easy, familiar. "How's your daughter doing? Still playing soccer?" Linda's expression softened instantly. "State finals next month," she said, pride slipping into her voice. "She's been training non-stop." "That's good," Ethan replied, pulling a folded bill from his pocket and placing it on the counter, like it weighed nothing. "Tell her to keep going." Linda glanced down. $100? She looked back up, a little surprised, a little grateful. "You really don't have to, I know," Ethan said, already moving again. "That's why I do." Ryan shook his head slightly as they walked past, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You're going to spoil that kid before she even graduates." Ethan didn't break stride. "If someone had done that for me at her age, I'd have gotten here faster." Ryan didn't argue with that. They stepped out onto the tarmac, and the air shifted. Warmer. Thicker. The faint scent of jet fuel mixing with the crisp edge of autumn. The aircraft sat waiting, a Gulf Stream, sleek, silent, immaculate, midnight blue along the fuselage, a silver emblem near the tail, subtle, precise, the kind of branding that didn't need to announce itself. It was understood. One of the ground crew jogged over, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Afternoon, Mr. Cole," he said, offering a handshake. "She's fueled, cleaned, and ready to go. Looking beautiful today." Ethan took his hand, firm, steady. "She always does." The man grinned, stepping back. Ethan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. "CFO," he answered without slowing down. "Talk to me." Ryan fell half a step behind, giving him space. On the other end, a voice moved fast. Numbers, deadlines, risk assessments. 800 million valuation, but they're pushing for adjustments on the term sheet. Ethan stepped onto the first stair of the aircraft. "Lock it." A pause. "Lock it," the voice repeated. "We close Tuesday," Ethan said. "No hesitation, no discussion. Send it." Another pause. Then, quieter. "Understood." The call ended. 4 words. $800 million decided. Ryan let out a low whistle as he followed him up the stairs. You know, one day, you could at least pretend that kind of decision weighs on you. Ethan glanced back over his shoulder, just slightly. "If it weighs on me, it means I didn't prepare enough." Ryan exhaled, shaking his head. "That's not normal." Ethan stepped into the cabin. Normal doesn't build companies like this. Inside, everything was exactly as it should be. Soft lighting, clean lines, hand-stitched leather, the quiet hum of systems already running, waiting for departure. And then there were the details. A framed photograph on the wall near the entrance. Ethan standing between 2 older men, both civil rights leaders, their expressions serious, proud. A different kind of room, A different kind of battle. Most people wouldn't notice it. Some would. Ashley Carter noticed it. She stood in the galley, arranging glasses on a polished tray, her movements sharp, precise. Her uniform was perfect, not a wrinkle, not a thread out of place. She had arrived early, 20 minutes before anyone else. That part of her job she did flawlessly. It was everything else that slipped. She had already snapped at a ground crew member for placing a catering cart a few inches off center. Already sighed when her colleague asked a simple question about storage. Already waved off a baggage handler without looking at him, dismissing him like he wasn't worth the effort. Small things, easy to ignore. Unless you were paying attention. She turned when she heard footsteps, and then she saw him, Ethan Cole, standing in the doorway. Hoodie, jeans, sneakers. For a fraction of a second, her body froze. Not long enough for anyone else to notice, but long enough for something inside her to react. Her eyes flicked over him quickly, assessing, categorizing, sorting him into a box she understood. And that box didn't fit this plane. Her posture shifted, shoulders back, chin slightly raised, smile gone, replaced with something colder. Professional on the surface, but underneath, something else. She stepped forward, blocking the aisle before he could take another step inside. No greeting, no welcome, no good afternoon, just a flat voice. "Excuse me," she said. "Can I help you?" Ethan stopped, not surprised, not offended, just still. "I'm good," he replied calmly, moving to step around her. She didn't move. Her stance widened just slightly. "Are you with the ground crew?" she asked. There it was. The assumption. Polite enough to deny. Sharp enough to cut. Ethan had heard it before. Hotels, dealerships, restaurants where his name was already on the reservation. Same tone, same look, different place, same question. He met her eyes. "No," he said. "I'm the passenger. A beat." She didn't move. "I'm going to need to see some identification," she said, her voice tightening just enough to signal this wasn't optional. "We can't have just anyone walking onto this aircraft." Anyone. The word hung there. 5 minutes earlier, a catering driver had walked on without a single question. But this was different. Ethan reached into his pocket, already pulling out his phone. Not because he needed to, because he understood the moment. And he understood her. And somewhere, deep down, Ashley Carter had already made her decision. She just didn't know how expensive it was about to become. Ethan didn't argue. He never did. Not at the beginning. He simply unlocked his phone and turned the screen toward her. The boarding manifest already pulled up. His name sitting there in clean black letters, aligned perfectly with the tail number of the aircraft, the departure time, the route. Everything matched. Everything was exact. Ashley barely looked at it. Her eyes skimmed the screen for less than a second before she lifted her hand and pushed it gently away, like she was brushing aside something unimportant. "That doesn't mean anything," she said. "Anyone can screenshot something like that." Her tone had changed. It wasn't cautious anymore. It was certain. Behind Ethan, Ryan exhaled slowly, his patience thinning in real time. "That's not how this works," he said, voice controlled but tighter now. "You already have the passenger list." "You already know who?" Ashley raised a hand without even looking at him. "I'm speaking to him," she said. Ryan stopped. Not because he agreed, because he understood something she didn't. This wasn't the moment. Ethan reached into his messenger bag, pulling out his wallet with the same steady, unhurried movement. He handed over his driver's license. Ashley took it. Now she looked. Really looked. Her eyes moved from the name to the photo, then back to Ethan's face, then back to the license again. Alpine, New Jersey. One of the wealthiest zip codes in the country. For a brief moment, something flickered. A crack. But it didn't last. Her fingers tightened slightly around the card as if holding it longer would make it change. It didn't. The name matched. The face matched. The address matched. Everything matched. And still, something inside her refused to accept it. She held on to the ID longer than necessary. 10 seconds. 15. 20. Ethan didn't move. His hand remained extended, waiting. The silence stretched. Ryan leaned forward slightly from his seat. "Everything all right up there?" he asked, voice sharper now, less patient. Ashley ignored him completely. Instead, she turned her back on Ethan, still holding his ID, and pulled out her phone. She dialed. No attempt to lower her voice. "Yeah, hi," she said. "This is Ashley on the Teterboro assignment. I've got a situation." A pause. "There's a guy here claiming to be the client." Another pause. Her eyes flicked toward Ethan, narrowing. "Something doesn't feel right. I just want to make sure we're safe. Safe." The word landed heavy. Not loud, but precise. Ethan felt it. Not in his chest. Not in his throat. Deeper. A familiar place. Safe meant dangerous. Safe meant threat. Safe meant she had already decided what he was. Ryan stood up now, fully. "That's enough," he said, his voice no longer trying to hide the edge. "You've verified everything. You have his ID. Dispatch already." Ashley turned slightly, just enough to silence him with a look. "Sir," she said, voice clipped. "I'm handling this. Handling this." Like Ethan was a problem to be managed. On the other end of the call, the dispatcher responded quickly. Confirmation came fast, clear, direct. Curtis Henderson, no. Ethan Cole, owner, primary passenger, everything verified. No ambiguity. Ashley listened, said nothing, then hung up. For a moment, she just stood there, phone still in her hand. The air in the cabin felt heavier now, denser. Ryan waited. Ethan waited. Did she apologize? Did she acknowledge the mistake? Did she soften even slightly? No. She turned back, finally handing Ethan his ID. Not carefully, not respectfully, just enough for it to reach his hand. "All right," she said flatly. "You can sit down." No name. No welcome. No acknowledgement of what she had just done. Just permission, like she was granting access to something that belonged to her. Ethan took the ID, said nothing, walked past her, sat down. Ryan leaned in close, voice low. "You okay?" Ethan gave a small nod. His face was calm. Too calm, because behind that calm, something had already started. A clock. Ashley moved into service mode, or what looked like it. She picked up a glass, filled it with water, and walked toward Ryan. Her movements were smooth now, controlled, almost rehearsed. She placed the glass gently on a linen napkin beside him. "For you," she said, offering a tight, professional smile. Ryan didn't touch it. He just looked at her. Then she turned, walked right past Ethan, didn't stop, didn't look, didn't acknowledge him at all, like his seat was empty, like he wasn't there. Ethan waited a few seconds. Then, calmly, "Could I get a sparkling water, please?" Ashley paused, just for a second, then let out a long, exaggerated sigh. Not subtle, not quiet. The kind of sigh meant to be heard. "We'll get to it," she said. She didn't. Instead, she reached for Ethan's messenger bag, the same bag he had carried for over a decade. Soft leather, worn edges, history in every crease. She picked it up and tossed it into the overhead bin. Not placed, not set down. Thrown. It hit the inside of the compartment with a dull thud. Ethan's eyes followed the movement. He didn't say anything, didn't react, didn't correct her. Because now he was watching, not her actions. The pattern? Ashley adjusted the cabin thermostat next. Lower, lower, lower. Within minutes, the air turned cold, sharp, uncomfortable. Ryan rubbed his hands together slightly, glancing toward the panel. "Seriously?" he muttered under his breath. Ashley didn't respond. She moved through the cabin, continuing her routine, every action justifiable on its own. "Oh, I forgot your drink. Oh, I didn't realize that was yours. Oh, I thought everyone preferred it cooler." Each excuse ready, each action deniable. But together, they formed something else, something intentional, something precise, a performance. And Ethan was the audience. Ashley stopped near his seat again, adjusting a tray that didn't need adjusting. Still no drink, still no acknowledgement. Ethan leaned back slightly, his fingers resting lightly on the armrest. Then he spoke again. Calm, measured. "What's the meal service looking like today?" A simple question, reasonable, normal. Ashley turned. Slowly, her expression shifted again. This time there was no pretense, no professionalism, just the raw edge of what she had been holding back. "Sir," she said, voice flat, cutting, "I don't know who let you on this plane, but this aircraft is reserved for the owner." A pause. Then, sharper. "You need to leave. Now." The words settled into the cabin like smoke. Heavy, unavoidable. Ryan's head snapped toward her. "You cannot be serious." Ashley ignored him, her eyes locked on Ethan. Certain, unshakable. Even after everything, even after the ID, even after dispatch. She had decided. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, but final. "I am the owner." Ashley let out a short, bitter laugh, tilted her head, crossed her arms. "Right," she said. "And I'm the President of the United States." Ryan's hand tightened again on the armrest. He was ready to stand, ready to end this. But Ethan lifted one finger, just one, without looking at him. Not yet. The clock was still ticking, and Ashley Carter was about to run out of time. Ashley stepped closer, not fast, not aggressive, just enough to close the space between them so it felt intentional, controlled, like she was taking ownership of the air itself. "Sir," she said again, her voice lower now, tighter, each word placed carefully. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Step off this aircraft." Her eyes didn't blink. "I'm not going to be responsible for an unauthorized individual on a plane, this valuable. Unauthorized." There it was again. Ethan didn't look away. His hands rested on his knees, open, relaxed. No tension, no threat, nothing that could be twisted into aggression. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. The words landed softly, but they didn't move. "This is my plane," he continued. "You are on my payroll right now." Silence. Real silence this time, not the kind filled with tension or whispers, the kind that clears everything out. Ashley blinked. Just once. It was small, almost invisible. But it was there. For half a second, something flickered behind her eyes. Doubt. Fear. A question she didn't want to ask. Then it was gone, replaced instantly. Her lips curled into something sharper. "Your plane," she repeated, letting out a short laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Sure it is." She tilted her head, studying him like she was trying to find the flaw she knew had to be there. "And I suppose you built the whole company too?" "I did." No hesitation, no emphasis, no need. 2 words. Simple. Absolute. That was the moment something shifted. Not in Ethan, In her, because she expected a speech, a defense, something emotional she could grab onto, twist, use. Instead, he gave her certainty, and certainty is hard to fight. It made her angry, not loud anger, not explosive, the kind that tightens in the chest and sharpens the edges of every thought. Ashley turned on her heel, quick, decisive. She marched toward the cabin door, her steps harder now, heels striking the floor with a rhythm that carried through the aircraft. Ryan leaned forward slightly. "You see that?" he muttered under his breath. Ethan didn't answer. He was watching. Ashley reached the door and pushed it open, letting in a rush of golden afternoon light. The tarmac stretched out in front of her, quiet, orderly, predictable. 30 yards away, an airport police SUV idled near the fuel station. Ashley raised her hand, waved, sharp, urgent. The SUV responded immediately, engine revving slightly as it rolled toward the aircraft. Inside the cabin, the air changed again. Heavier. Ryan stood up slowly this time, no hesitation. "This is going too far," he said, voice low but no longer controlled. Ethan lifted his hand again. One gesture. "Stay." Ryan froze. Not because he wanted to, because he trusted him. Outside, the SUV stopped at the base of the stairs. The door opened, and a man stepped out. Officer Daniel Reeves, late 40s, broad shoulders, years in the job written into the way he moved. Not rushed, not careless, just practiced. He adjusted his belt as he walked toward the aircraft, sunglasses pushed up onto his forehead. Ashley leaned out, meeting him halfway. "Officer?" she said, her tone shifting instantly, softer, measured. There was something else in it now. Fear. Or at least the performance of it. "There's an unauthorized individual on this aircraft," she said. "He's refusing to leave." A pause. Then, quieter. "He's getting aggressive." Aggressive. The word hit the cabin like a spark. Ryan let out a short, incredulous breath. "Aggressive?" he repeated under his breath. Ethan didn't react, didn't move. Officer Reeves climbed the stairs, his boots heavy against the metal. Each step echoed. He entered the cabin and stopped just inside, taking in the scene. Ashley to his left, Ryan standing, Ethan seated. Still, calm, too calm. Reeves's eyes moved between them, measuring, calculating. "Sir," he said finally, addressing Ethan, his voice firm but not hostile. "I'm going to need you to step outside with me for a moment." Ethan looked up at him. No resistance, no attitude, just clarity. "Officer," he said, "my name is Ethan Cole. I own this aircraft. A beat. You can verify that with the FAA registry, the FBO desk, or the tail number on the fuselage outside." He gestured slightly toward the window. Through the oval glass, the logo was visible. Clean, sharp, unmistakable. Reeves glanced at it, then back at Ethan. Something in his expression shifted. Not belief, but hesitation. The first sign that the situation wasn't as simple as it had been presented. Behind him, Ashley stepped closer. Close enough to lower her voice. Close enough to influence. "Officer," she said quietly. "He's been confrontational since he boarded. I already called dispatch and they couldn't confirm anything. That was a lie, a clean one, delivered smoothly. I don't feel safe. Safe. Again." The word did its work. Reeves straightened slightly, his posture changing just enough to signal a decision forming. He turned back to Ethan. "Sir, I understand what you're saying," he said, "but I need you to stand up for me, just so we can sort this out." He took a step forward, not aggressive, but purposeful. His hands moved slightly away from his sides. Positioning. Preparation. Ethan's eyes dropped for a fraction of a second. Not to the man, to the hands. He knew that posture. He knew what came next. A frisk. On his own plane, because someone said the word aggressive. He had seen this before, too many times. Different uniforms, same script. Ryan moved. Fast, not reckless, controlled, but enough to shift the energy in the room. He stepped forward, placing himself just slightly between Ethan and the officer. "My name is Ryan Brooks," he said, his voice clear now, cutting through the tension like a blade. "I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Skyline Apex Aviation." Reeves paused. Just enough. Ryan continued. "The company that owns this aircraft. Another step. Closer. The man you are about to put your hands on is Ethan Cole, founder, CEO, sole owner." The words landed, one by one. Heavy, measured. Ryan lifted his hand, pointing upward. 3 small black domes were embedded in the ceiling. Subtle. Almost invisible if you weren't looking for them. Security cameras. "Every second since we boarded this aircraft has been recorded," Ryan said. "Audio, video, multiple angles, stored in real time." A pause. Then slower. "So whatever happens next," he let it hang. Didn't finish it. Didn't need to. Reeves followed his gaze, looked up at the cameras, red lights blinking. Steady, unblinking, watching. The cabin went still. Not tense, not loud. Just still. Ashley's face changed. Not dramatically, not in a way she could control, but enough. Because for the first time, the story she had built in her head wasn't just hers anymore. It was documented, and documentation doesn't bend. For a few seconds no one moved. The engines hummed softly outside. Somewhere in the distance, another jet taxied across the runway. Inside, everything waited. And for the first time since Ethan stepped onto that plane, Ashley Carter didn't look certain anymore. Ashley's jaw tightened. You could see it in the muscles along her cheek, in the way her lips pressed together just a little too hard, like she was holding something back that didn't want to stay contained. The cameras changed everything. Not the truth. The truth had been there from the beginning. But now it couldn't be rewritten. And that made her dangerous, because people like Ashley didn't step back when they were wrong. They pushed forward. Harder. She took a slow breath, turning slightly toward Ethan again, her posture stiff, her shoulders squared like she was bracing herself for something she refused to name. "You know what?" she said, her voice lower now, but sharper, cutting cleaner. "I'm done arguing." Ethan didn't respond, didn't move, just watched. Ashley stepped closer. Too close now. Close enough that the space between them felt like pressure. Her eyes burned with something raw, not fear. Not yet. Something closer to anger losing control. "You people," she said. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Soft, but poisonous. The cabin felt it. Ryan felt it. Reeves felt it. Even Ashley felt it, a split second too late. But once words like that exist in the air, they don't disappear. They settle. They stay. Ashley pushed forward anyway. "You people always have some story," she continued, her voice rising just slightly, enough to carry. "Always some explanation for how you got somewhere you shouldn't be." Ryan took a step forward instantly. "That's enough," he snapped. Reeves lifted a hand without looking at him. "Sir, stay back." Ashley didn't stop. She couldn't. Because now it wasn't about the plane anymore. It wasn't about procedure. It was about being right. "You think I haven't seen this before?" She pressed on, her voice trembling at the edges now. "You probably stole the money, or scammed someone, or got lucky and now you think you belong here." Each word hit harder than the last. Not loud, not dramatic, just deliberate. Ethan stood up. Not fast, not aggressive, just stood. 6'2", broad shoulders. The hoodie didn't hide it anymore. Now it framed it. His presence filled the space in a way it hadn't when he was seated. Ashley took a half step back. She didn't realize she had moved, but she had. Ethan looked down at her. Not angry, not loud, just done. We're done here, he said quietly. A pause. Then, clear. Get off my plane. The words landed. Not shouted, not forced. Just final. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Even the engines seemed quieter. And then, Ashley slapped him. Full force, open palm, across the left side of his face. The sound cracked through the cabin like a gunshot. Reeves flinched. Ryan lunged forward, then stopped himself mid-step, his hands clenching into fists at his sides, every instinct screaming at him to react. Ethan's head turned slightly with the impact. A red mark bloomed instantly across his cheek. Sharp, clear, undeniable. But he didn't raise his hand, didn't step back, didn't say a word. The silence after the slap was louder than the sound itself. Ashley's hand hovered in the air for a second longer, her fingers trembling now, her breathing uneven. She expected something, a reaction, a shout, a step forward, anything she could point to and say, "See, I told you. He's dangerous. He's aggressive. He's exactly what I said he was." Ethan gave her nothing. He turned his head back slowly, faced her again. Then his eyes moved, up, to the camera directly above her. The small red light blinked, steady, unblinking, recording everything. Then he looked back at her, and he smiled. Not warm, not forgiving, the kind of smile that settles deep in your stomach and doesn't let go, because it doesn't mean anything good. Ashley felt it, even if she didn't understand it. Ryan saw it too, and for the first time since this started. He relaxed. Just a little, because he knew. Whatever came next wasn't going to be chaos. It was going to be controlled, precise. Ethan turned, walked back to his seat, sat down, slow, deliberate, like nothing had happened, like the mark on his face didn't exist, like the moment didn't matter. Ashley stood frozen, her chest rising and falling too fast now, her palm still tingling. Something had shifted again. Not in the room. In her. Because now, there was no going back. Reeves stepped back slightly, his expression different now, less certain, more cautious. "Mom," he said carefully, "I'm going to need you to step away." Ashley didn't respond. She was staring at Ethan, waiting, still waiting, for something, anything. Ethan reached for his phone. Calm, unhurried. He unlocked it, tapped once, held it to his ear, and that's when her world began to fall apart. "Andrew," Ethan said, his voice as steady as if he were ordering lunch. "It's Ethan." A pause. "I need you to pull up the live feed from my aircraft. Cabin camera 3. Another pause. "You'll see an assault that occurred about a minute ago." Ashley's breathing hitched, just slightly. Ethan continued. "Yes, on me. No emotion, no anger. Just facts. I want charges filed within the hour. Battery, false report, everything applicable." He listened, nodded once. "Good. I'll preserve the footage on my end." He ended the call, set the phone down. Ashley's face had changed. Not completely, but enough. The confidence was still there. But now it was thinner, like something underneath it was starting to show through. Ethan picked up the phone again. Second call. "James," he said, "I need every active contract we have with Skylane Private Charters." A pause. "Every single one." Ryan leaned back slightly, folding his arms now, watching, listening. Ethan's eyes didn't leave Ashley. I want termination letters drafted immediately, he continued. Effective today. A longer pause this time. Then, yes. All of them. He ended the call. Ashley's lips parted slightly. Skylane. That was her company, her employer, the name on her paycheck. The ground beneath her feet shifted. Just a little. But enough. Ethan didn't stop. Third call. He kept his eyes locked on her the entire time. Gail, he said. A pause. It's Ethan Cole. On the other end, a voice answered immediately. Of course it did. Gail, I'm sitting on my aircraft at Teterboro right now, he continued. One of your crew members has spent the last 30 minutes racially profiling me, questioning my right to be here, filing a false police report. A beat. And just over a minute ago, she physically struck me. Silence. Heavy. Ethan let it sit. Let it breathe. The entire incident is recorded, he said, finally. Audio and video. Another pause. Longer. I need a call back within 10 minutes, he added. If I don't get one? He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Our relationship is over. A soft click. The call ended. Ethan placed the phone down beside him, folded his hands, and waited. The cabin was silent again. But this time, it wasn't tension. It was consequence, and Ashley Carter was standing right in the middle of it, with no idea how fast it was about to hit. No one spoke. The kind of silence that follows a mistake you can't take back. It settled over the cabin, thick and immovable, pressing into every corner, into every breath. Ashley stood in the aisle, her shoulders still squared, but the edges of that posture were starting to soften. Not collapse. Not yet. But something inside it had loosened. Her eyes flicked to the cameras again. 3 of them. Front. Middle. Rear. All blinking red. All watching. Her throat tightened, just slightly. Officer Reeves shifted his weight, the sound of his boot against the carpet louder than it should have been. He reached for his phone, pulling it out slowly, like he was careful not to make the moment any sharper than it already was. He turned away just enough to give himself space. Typed the tail number first. 5 characters. Then waited. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Aircraft registered to Skyline Apex Aviation, LLC. Owner, Ethan Cole. Reeves's eyes narrowed. He tapped again. The company name. Search. Results loaded instantly. Articles, profiles, interviews. A photo of Ethan in a navy suit, standing beside a senator. Another with a governor. Another at a podium, speaking into a microphone. The kind of room filled with people who made decisions that moved markets. Net worth. $2.3 billion. A recognition flickered, then settled. Reeves lowered the phone slowly. The air inside the cabin felt different now. He turned back, looked at Ethan, then at Ashley, and something in his expression hardened. Not anger, not frustration, just clarity. "Ma'am," he said. His voice had changed, quieter, heavier. "I'm going to need you to step off this aircraft." Ashley's head snapped toward him. "What?" The word came out sharp, disbelieving. "He's the one, ma'am," Reeves cut in. "Not loud, but final. The aircraft owner has asked you to leave." A pause, then slower. "You are now trespassing on private property." The word landed hard. Trespassing. It flipped everything. In an instant, Ashley's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. She looked at Ethan, then at Reeves, then at Ryan, who was now leaning back in his seat, arms crossed, watching her with an expression that didn't need to say anything. Ashley turned back to Reeves, her voice breaking just slightly at the edges. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You saw him. You heard him." He was seated, Reeves said. Simple. Flat. His eyes didn't leave hers. His hands were visible the entire time. Another pause. "You struck him?" The words didn't rise. They dropped. Heavy. Ashley shook her head quickly. Too quickly. "No, that's not," he provoked me. He was intimidating. I felt threatened. Threatened. The word sounded weaker now, like it had lost something. Reeves didn't blink. "I watched the entire interaction," he said. Not loud, just certain. Ashley's breathing sped up, her chest rising and falling faster now. Her eyes darted again, to the cameras, still blinking, still recording. Her hand slipped into her pocket. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Screen lighting up her face. A message. "Call me immediately." Her supervisor. Another vibration. An email notification. Subject line. "Immediate suspension, pending investigation." Her fingers trembled slightly. Another vibration. Another email. "Termination of employment. Effective immediately." 3 messages. 30 seconds. Everything gone. Her vision blurred for a moment. She blinked hard. Looked up again. Ethan was still sitting exactly where he had been. Same posture. Same calm. The red mark on his cheek darker now. Visible. Unignored. He wasn't looking at her. He didn't need to. That was worse. Because it meant he was already past her. Already beyond this moment. Ashley took a step back. Then another. Her legs felt lighter. Unstable. Like the ground under her had shifted, and she hadn't caught up yet. I didn't mean," she started. The words felt small. Useless. Ryan exhaled slowly, shaking his head once. "You meant every second of it," he said quietly. Ashley didn't respond. She couldn't. Because she knew. Reeves stepped aside, clearing the path to the door. "Mom," he said again. "No anger, no sympathy, just procedure. Step off the plane." Ashley turned. Slowly. Each movement heavier than the last. She walked toward the door. Her heels hit the floor softer now. Less confident. Less certain. The sunlight outside hit her face as she stepped onto the stairs. Warm. Blinding. She paused for half a second at the top, then continued down. Each step felt longer, further, like distance she couldn't close. At the bottom, her knees nearly gave out. She caught herself. Barely. The world outside hadn't changed. The same golden light, the same quiet hum of engines, the same smell of jet fuel and autumn air, but everything inside her had. Reeves followed her down. His boots struck the metal stairs with a steady rhythm. He reached the tarmac, pulled out his notepad. His tone shifted again. Official now. Structured. "Ma'am," he said, "based on what I witnessed, I'm placing you under arrest for simple assault and filing a false police report." Ashley's head snapped up. "Arrest," she said. The word sounded foreign in her mouth. No, you don't understand. This is a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job." Reeves didn't react. "Turn around," he said. Her breath hitched. "I have rent," she said quickly. "I have bills. This can't." "Turn around," he repeated. Softer, but immovable. Ashley's shoulders dropped, just slightly, then more. She turned, slow, mechanical. Her hands moved behind her back. The cuffs clicked. Metal on metal, sharp, final. The sound carried across the tarmac. 2 ground crew members near the fuel truck looked over. One of them shook his head slowly. The other pulled out his phone. Recording. Ashley's breathing broke. Not controlled anymore. Not measured. Raw. "I didn't mean to," she said, her voice cracking now. "It just happened." Reeves guided her toward the SUV. "You should have thought about that before you put your hands on someone," he said. The door opened. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then climbed in. The door closed. Heavy. Through the tinted glass, her figure collapsed forward, shoulders shaking. Inside the plane, the cabin was still. Ethan sat quietly, the cold water bottle pressed lightly against his cheek. Not because it hurt that much, because it gave his hands something to do. Ryan watched through the window as the SUV pulled away, then looked back at Ethan. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The engines hummed, the cameras blinked, everything continued, like nothing had happened, except everything had. "You okay?" Ryan asked finally. Ethan stared out the window, the place where she had been. Gone now. "I'm tired," he said. His voice was low, not angry, not emotional, just worn. Ryan didn't respond. He understood. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Not of her," he added, "of the fact that this keeps happening." The words settled. Heavy. True. Outside, the tarmac returned to normal. People moved. Jets taxied. Life continued. Inside, something had shifted. Not loud, not visible, but permanent. And somewhere in the distance, consequences were still catching up. They just hadn't arrived yet. 40 minutes later, the sun had dipped just enough to sharpen the shadows on the tarmac. The engines were still quiet. No one had pushed for departure. No one was rushing. Because when something like this happens, schedules stop mattering. A black sedan pulled up hard near the aircraft, tires crunching lightly over the concrete. The door opened before the car had fully settled, and a woman stepped out quickly, closing it behind her with more force than she intended. Gail Townsend. Late 50s, impeccable suit, controlled presence. Except now, that control was slipping. Her face was pale. Not the kind that comes from the weather. The kind that comes from realizing something has already gone wrong beyond repair. She didn't wait for anyone to greet her, didn't check in, didn't pause. She walked straight toward the aircraft stairs, her heels striking the ground in fast, precise steps. Halfway there, she slowed. Not because she wanted to, because she saw the police SUV, still parked, still there. A signal that this wasn't just a complaint. This was something else, something official, something recorded. She swallowed, then kept moving. At the base of the stairs, she looked up. The aircraft door was open, but she didn't see Ashley. That alone told her everything she needed to know. Ryan Brooks appeared at the top of the stairs. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just looked down at her. "Mr. Cole is not available," he said. Gail stopped. "Just for a second. I need to speak with him," she replied quickly. "Now." Ryan didn't move. "He's not available," he repeated. A beat, then, more direct. "You can speak to me?" Gail exhaled sharply, trying to steady herself. "Ryan, please," she said, lowering her voice. "We've worked together for years. Whatever happened here, we can fix it." Ryan's expression didn't change. "No," he said. "You can't." The word landed flat. Final. Gail felt it. She stepped closer to the stairs. "At least let me come up," she said. "We need to handle this properly." Ryan reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. White, plain, heavy. He walked down a few steps, stopped halfway, extended it toward her. Gail hesitated, then took it. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge as she opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Company letterhead. Clean. Precise. She read the first line. Her eyes moved faster after that. Then slowed, then stopped. Termination of all contracts between Skyline Apex Aviation and Skylane Private Charters. Effective immediately. She blinked, read it again. Slower this time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something else. They didn't. Her grip on the paper tightened. "How much?" she asked quietly. Ryan didn't answer right away. He let the silence sit. Then, 14 million annually, he said. 6 subsidiaries, multiple divisions. Gone. Gail's shoulders dropped slightly. Not dramatically, but enough. That's all of it? She asked. Ryan nodded once. All of it. The air between them shifted. Not tension, not anger, finality. Gail looked back down at the letter. 14 million. Not projected, not potential, guaranteed, steady, gone. Because of one employee, one moment, one decision. She closed her eyes briefly, just long enough to feel it, then opened them again. There has to be something we can do, she said. Her voice was different now, less controlled, more human. Anything, she added quickly. A review, a settlement. We'll cooperate fully. Whatever Mr. Cole needs. Ryan shook his head. No, he said. Gail's lips parted slightly. We've already done everything we need to do. She looked up at him. Searching. For hesitation. For negotiation. For anything. There was nothing. Ryan, she said, her voice tightening now. This will destroy us. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because he knew. And so did she. Behind them, the late afternoon light stretched longer across the tarmac. Time moved. But this moment didn't. Gail folded the letter slowly, carefully, like it mattered, like handling it differently might change what it said. It didn't. She held it in both hands, looked back up at Ryan. Is he going to release the footage? She asked. Ryan met her eyes. A pause. Then, that depends on what your legal team does next. The answer landed heavy, because it wasn't a threat. It was a fact. Gail nodded slowly. She understood. More than he said. More than he needed to say. Understood, she replied. Her voice steadied slightly. Not because things were better. Because they were clearer. She turned, walked back toward her car, each step slower now, heavier, the weight of what had just happened settling in fully. She reached the door, paused, looked back once, at the aircraft, at the place where everything had shifted. Then she got in. The door closed, the engine started, and the car pulled away. Inside the plane, Ethan hadn't moved. He sat where he had been, the cold water bottle still resting against his cheek, the red mark fading into a darker bruise. Ryan stepped back into the cabin, closed the door behind him. The sound was soft, but final. He walked back to his seat, sat down, exhaled. It's done, he said. Ethan nodded once. No satisfaction, no relief, just acknowledgement. Ryan leaned back, running a hand across his face. 14 million, he muttered. Just like that. Ethan didn't look at him. Not just like that, he said quietly. Ryan glanced over. Ethan's gaze was fixed on the window again. On nothing. On everything. It took years to build that, Ethan continued. Trust, access, reliability. A pause. They burned it in 30 minutes. The words hung there. Ryan nodded slowly. He couldn't argue with that. Because it was true. Outside, the runway stretched out into the distance, empty and waiting. The sky had shifted from gold to something deeper now. Evening coming. Time moving forward. Inside, the plane remained still, waiting for the next decision. Ryan leaned forward slightly. You want to take off? He asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. He let the question sit. Then, give it a few minutes, he said. Ryan frowned slightly. For what? Ethan finally looked at him. Calm. Certain. For the rest of it to start. Ryan held his gaze, then leaned back again, because he understood. What had happened on this plane wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And somewhere out there, beyond the tarmac, beyond the quiet airport, beyond the moment that had just unfolded. The consequences were already moving, fast, unstoppable, and there was nothing anyone could do to slow them down now. Monday morning didn't arrive quietly. It broke. At exactly 6:12 in the morning, the first clip hit the internet. No commentary, no headline. Just raw footage pulled straight from the cabin cameras, 3 angles stitched together into one relentless stream of truth. The slap came first, sharp, unmistakable. Then the silence, then the words, "You people." Within minutes, the video began to move, not slowly, not cautiously. It spread. A commuter in Newark watched it on his phone while waiting for his train. A retiree in Phoenix saw it on her tablet with her morning coffee. A veteran in Ohio paused mid-bite, the fork hovering halfway to his mouth as the footage replayed. By 7 o'clock, it was everywhere. Newsrooms picked it up before their producers had finished their first meetings. Anchors adjusted their scripts in real time. Graphics teams scrambled to pull names, faces, context. By 8, it had a headline. By 9, it had a narrative. By 10, it had a storm. On National Evening News, Nina Collins sat behind the desk, her tone measured, her posture steady. She didn't need theatrics. The video did the work for her. "We're going to show you something this morning," she said, looking directly into the camera. "We want you to watch it carefully." The footage played. No cuts, no edits. The ID check, the dismissal, the ignored request for water. The word unauthorized, the word aggressive, the moment her voice dropped when she spoke to the officer. Then, the slap. The studio stayed silent for 2 full seconds after it ended. Nina didn't rush to fill it. She let it sit. Then, quietly, "That man is Ethan Cole, founder and CEO of Skyline Apex Aviation." Another pause. "The woman is Ashley Carter, an employee of Skyline Private Charters. She has since been terminated and is facing criminal charges." That was enough. The phone started ringing before the segment ended. By noon, the video had crossed 10 million views. By afternoon, 20. By evening, it wasn't just a story. It was a symbol. Hashtags formed on their own. Justice for Ethan. 8 minutes. Know your place. They spread just as fast as the footage. People weren't just watching. They were reacting. Anger moved through comment sections like wildfire. Not the quiet kind that scrolls past and fades. The kind that calls, that emails, that demands. One man in Chicago cancelled his company's charter contract before lunch. A corporate travel manager in Dallas sent out a company-wide directive to review all aviation partners. A retired judge in Virginia wrote a letter to the editor before the evening edition closed. It wasn't organized. It didn't need to be, because everyone was seeing the same thing. And they were seeing it clearly. By Tuesday morning, Skylane's headquarters felt different. Phones didn't stop ringing. Emails stacked faster than they could be read. Clients weren't asking questions. They were giving notice. 3 major accounts pulled out before noon. Then 4 more. Then smaller ones followed, not wanting their names anywhere near the story that was now dominating every feed. By Wednesday, the losses were measurable. $43 million in annual revenue. Gone. Not projected. Not threatened. Gone. Inside the executive conference room, the air was thick. Gail Townsend sat at the head of the table, her posture still controlled, but the strain visible now in the lines around her eyes. "We are implementing immediate policy reviews," she said, her voice steady, rehearsed. "Mandatory training, independent oversight, full cooperation with authorities." No one interrupted. No one argued. Because everyone in that room knew. This wasn't about policy anymore. It was about trust, and trust had already left the building. Across the table, the head of operations leaned forward. "We have 3 prior complaints on Carter," he said quietly. The room stilled. Gail's eyes shifted. "Documented?" she asked. He nodded. "All from clients of color. Similar patterns. Service refusal, escalation. One involved a call to security over a blanket request." A silence followed. Long. Heavy. "Why wasn't this addressed?" Gail asked. No one answered immediately. Then, "It was handled at the middle management level," someone said. "Filed, not escalated. Filed." The word echoed, because it meant buried. By Thursday, Nina Collins had the follow-up. The segment opened with the same footage, but this time there was context. "New information this evening," she said. Records show that Ashley Carter had 3 prior complaints filed against her for similar conduct. Those complaints were never escalated beyond internal review. The story changed shape instantly. This wasn't one person anymore. It was a system, and systems don't get the benefit of doubt. Public reaction shifted from outrage to something sharper: accountability. By Friday, Skylane's CEO appeared on camera. A statement, carefully worded, deeply concerned. 0 tolerance. Committed to change. It landed flat. Because people had already seen the truth. And once you've seen something that clearly, statements don't fix it. They just follow it. Back at the airport, days earlier, Ethan had already moved on. But the world hadn't. The footage kept replaying. Not because it needed to. Because it couldn't be ignored. The moment her hand connected with his face. The moment he didn't react. The moment everything shifted. Those 8 minutes became something else. A reference point. A line. And everywhere people watched it, one question kept coming back. Not about him. About themselves. What would I have done? Would I have stayed calm? Would I have fought back? Would I have walked away? There were no easy answers, because the truth wasn't simple. It never is. Inside the aircraft that day, Ethan had known exactly what he was doing. Not in anger, not in revenge, in control. And now, days later, that control had extended far beyond that cabin, into homes, into offices, into conversations that hadn't been happening before. Ryan sat across from him again, days later, scrolling through the latest numbers, the latest headlines, the latest fallout. "It's still climbing," he said quietly. "Views, reactions, everything." Ethan didn't look up. He didn't need to. He already knew. Ryan leaned back slightly. "You expected this?" A pause. Then, "I expected the truth to matter," Ethan said. Ryan nodded slowly. Because that was the difference. Not everyone had cameras. Not everyone had lawyers. Not everyone had the ability to turn a moment into evidence the world couldn't ignore. Ethan finally looked up. His expression hadn't changed, still calm, still controlled. But there was something else now. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Something deeper. "Most people don't get 8 minutes," he said quietly. The word settled. Heavy. True. Outside, the world kept moving. Planes took off. Contracts were signed. Lives continued. But something had shifted. Not loud. Not dramatic. But real. And it started with a moment that was never supposed to be seen. Until it was, the courtroom didn't feel like the internet. No noise. No scrolling feeds. No comments racing past in real time. Just wood. Paper. Breath. And a screen. 6 feet tall, positioned where everyone could see it. Ethan Cole sat at the plaintiff's table, hands folded, posture straight, expression unreadable. The bruise on his cheek had faded days ago, but the memory of it hadn't gone anywhere. Across the room, Ashley Carter sat beside her attorney. She looked smaller now. Not physically, but in the way people shrink when the version of themselves they believed in doesn't survive contact with reality. Her hair was pulled back tighter than before. Her suit was conservative, neutral, designed to disappear. It didn't. Nothing about this could disappear. Judge Patricia Wells entered without ceremony, her presence steady, practiced, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. "Let's proceed," she said. "No drama, no build-up, just movement." The prosecutor stood. "We will begin with the footage," he said. "No need for opening arguments. No need for framing, because everyone already knew what this case was about." The lights dimmed slightly. The screen came alive. Camera 1. The entrance. Ashley's posture. The first question. "Can I help you?" Camera 2. The aisle. The ID check. The dismissal. The word, anyone. Camera 3. The seat. The ignored request. The sigh. The bag thrown. The temperature drop wasn't visible, but you could feel it in the pacing, in the way Ethan's hands remained still while everything around him shifted. The prosecutor said nothing. He didn't need to. The footage spoke. Then came the words. Unauthorized. Aggressive. The whisper to the officer. The lie. The room stayed silent. Even the jury. No shifting. No note-taking. Just watching. Then, the moment. Ashley stepping closer, her face tightening, her voice changing. "You people." It landed in the courtroom the same way it had landed in the cabin, sharp, unavoidable. Ashley's attorney shifted in his seat, just slightly. He knew. There are moments you can argue. This wasn't one of them. And then, the slap. The sound echoed through the speakers, clean, amplified, impossible to soften. Several people in the gallery flinched. One juror blinked hard, another leaned back slightly, arms crossing instinctively. On the screen, Ethan didn't move, didn't react, just absorbed it. The footage continued, the calls, the calm, the control. Then it ended. The lights came back up slowly. No one spoke. The prosecutor didn't rush forward. He let it sit. Because silence, in moments like this, is louder than any argument. "Your Honor," he said finally, "the state rests on the evidence presented. No embellishment. No performance. Just fact." Ashley's attorney stood. He was polished, experienced, the kind of man who knew how to turn emotion into doubt. "My client," he began, "was under significant stress at the time of the incident. He paced slightly, controlled, measured. She was placed in a position of responsibility, without full context, tasked with ensuring the safety of a high-value aircraft. A glance toward the jury. She made a mistake. He let the word hang. Mistake. An unfortunate, regrettable mistake, he continued, but not one driven by malice, not one deserving of the full weight of criminal prosecution. He turned toward Ashley. She lowered her eyes at the right moment. On cue. "My client has no prior criminal history," he added. "She has cooperated fully with the investigation. She has expressed remorse." He paused. Then, "We ask the court to consider leniency." He sat down. Ashley was called to the stand. She stood slowly, her hands clasped together, her shoulders slightly drawn inward. Different now. Not confident. Not sharp. Careful. She took the oath. Sat. Her voice, when she spoke, was softer than before. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. Her eyes glistened. She dabbed them with a tissue. "I was overwhelmed," she continued. "I thought I was doing my job. I thought I was protecting the aircraft. protecting. The word sounded thinner here. Less convincing. I never intended to hurt anyone, she added. Her voice broke slightly. A pause. I don't see color, she said. The words landed, but not the way she wanted, because everyone in that room had already seen the footage. The prosecutor stood for cross-examination. He didn't pace, didn't raise his voice, didn't perform. He simply walked to the center. Ms. Carter, he said, I have one question. A pause. If the man who boarded that aircraft had been white, same clothing, same behavior, would you have asked him for identification? Ashley froze. Just for a second. Her eyes shifted, then back. I would have treated anyone the same, she said. The prosecutor nodded. Of course, he turned. Let's take a look at that. The screen lit up again. A short clip this time, earlier. A catering driver. White, carrying trays, walking onto the aircraft. No questions, no pause, no ID, just a movement. In, out, done. The room watched. No commentary, no narration, just contrast. The prosecutor turned back. No follow-up. He didn't need one. Ashley's attorney closed his eyes briefly, just a fraction of a second, then opened them again. But the damage was already done. Day 4 came quickly. No delays, no surprises. The jury filed in. Sat. Still. The foreperson stood. On the charge of assault in the 3rd degree, a pause. Guilty. Ashley's fingers tightened in her lap. On the charge of filing a false police report, another pause. Guilty. The words didn't echo. They settled. Heavy. Permanent. Judge Wells adjusted her glasses slightly, looked down at the file, then up. Ms. Carter, she said, her voice even, controlled. The evidence in this case was clear. No anger. No sympathy. Just clarity. You used your position to make unfounded accusations. You escalated a situation that did not require escalation, and you committed an act of physical violence. Ashley stared at the table, didn't look up. The judge continued. You are sentenced to 18 months probation, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory participation in a bias rehabilitation program. A pause. And a permanent record of this conviction will follow you. Another pause. Then, you are also barred from future employment in the aviation industry. That one landed differently. Not loud, but final. Ashley's shoulders dropped, just slightly. The last piece. Gone. Court is adjourned, the judge said. The gavel struck once. Clean. Decisive. Ethan didn't move immediately. He sat for a moment longer, then stood. Ryan stepped beside him. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. As they walked out, the room behind them began to shift again. Voices returning, movement resuming. But the outcome was already set. Outside, the air felt different. Cooler. Clearer. Ryan glanced over. That's it, he said quietly. Ethan nodded. Yes, he replied. But his tone didn't carry victory. It carried something else, something heavier. Because, for him, this had never just been about one person, and even now, it still wasn't. The bruise was gone. You couldn't see it anymore. No discoloration, no swelling, no visible mark left on Ethan Cole's face. But that didn't mean it had disappeared. Some things don't fade with time. They settle deeper. Monday morning, 1 week later, Ethan walked into his office, wearing the same kind of hoodie he always wore. Dark, clean, unremarkable. The kind of clothing people still underestimated. Nothing about him suggested headlines. Nothing about him suggested the kind of man who had just shaken an entire industry. That was the point. The office overlooked the runway, glass stretching from floor to ceiling. Planes moved in the distance. steady and indifferent. Takeoffs, landings, routine continuing like nothing had happened. But inside the industry, everything had. Ryan stood near the window, tablet in hand, scrolling through reports that kept updating faster than he could read them. "The foundation paperwork is ready," he said without turning. "We can file today." Ethan nodded once, setting his phone down on the desk. The Henderson Foundation. It hadn't existed a week ago. Now it was real. Funded entirely by the settlement. $3.2 million. Every cent redirected. Scholarships for aviation students who never got access. Mentorship programs for young entrepreneurs who didn't have connections. Legal support for cases that never made it to cameras. Ryan turned slightly. "You could have kept it," he said. "No one would have questioned it." Ethan looked out at the runway. "I didn't lose anything," he said. A pause. They did. Ryan watched him for a moment, then nodded, because he understood. This was never about getting even. It was about correcting something that kept repeating. Later that week, Ethan sat in a hearing room in Washington. Wood-paneled walls, long table, microphones placed precisely in front of each seat. The kind of room where voices are recorded, archived, replayed long after the moment passes. Senators sat across from him. Staffers lined the walls. Cameras were present, but quieter here. More controlled. Ethan didn't raise his voice, didn't lean forward, didn't perform. He spoke the same way he had on that plane. Calm. "Measured, direct. I was slapped on my own aircraft," he said. "No emphasis, no drama, just fact. I had cameras, I had legal support, I had resources." A pause. Then, what happens to the man who doesn't? The room didn't respond. It didn't need to, because the question didn't require an answer. It required acknowledgement. Outside that room, the industry was still adjusting. New policies, new training programs, new oversight committees. Words like accountability and reform appeared in statements, in press releases, in interviews. Some meant it, some didn't. But the pressure remained, because once something is seen clearly, it can't be unseen. Back at Skyline Apex Aviation, things had shifted too. Not in operations, not in numbers, in expectation. Ryan stood in a newly constructed training room, addressing a group of new hires, pilots, crew members, staff. "Every client who steps onto one of our aircraft," he said, "is treated with the same level of respect. No exceptions." He paused. "Not because of what they wear, not because of what they look like, because they're there." The room stayed quiet, listening, absorbing. On the wall behind him, a framed image, not a photograph, a screenshot, an email, termination of employment. Effective immediately, Ashley Carter's name, not displayed as punishment, displayed as reminder, because forgetting is how things repeat. Across the country, Skylane Private Charters was still rebuilding. Leadership changes, policy overhauls, public statements that tried to repair what had already broken. It would take time, a lot of it. Some damage doesn't fix quickly, some never does. Ashley Carter finished her probation quietly. 300 hours of community service, mandatory programs, no headlines, no interviews. Her name disappeared from public spaces. Records remained. Permanent. She moved, changed numbers, closed accounts. The world moved on, but not entirely. Because the footage still existed. The moment still existed. And people still watched it, not for entertainment, for recognition, for understanding, for something that felt familiar in ways they couldn't always explain. Back in his office, Ethan stood alone now. The sun had shifted again, casting longer shadows across the runway. Another plane lifted into the air, engines roaring, climbing fast, leaving the ground behind without hesitation. He watched it go. Not with pride, not with satisfaction, with awareness, because everything that had happened was bigger than him, bigger than one moment, bigger than one person. It was about something that had been there long before that day, and would still be there after. His phone buzzed once on the desk. A message from Ryan. The numbers keep climbing. Views, reactions, impact. Ethan glanced at it, then set the phone down again. He didn't need the numbers. He had seen the result. He had felt it. And he knew. Some stories don't end when the moment passes. They expand. They move. They settle into places you don't see right away. And sometimes they change things. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to matter. Enough to start something. If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something real, take a second to support the channel. Hit like, subscribe, and drop 3 words in the comments. Stay calm always.